Everybody go to fund church that wants to. You saw there and on our host screen today the promotion of Jason and Braden Runnels is going to be with us Sunday morning of August the 1st. Andy has some of these flyers like this. If you go to get your hair done or go to the market and they have a bulletin board, any place, if you go to the library and they've got a bulletin board there and ask their permission, don't just post things around. Say, may I put this in your window or may I attach this to your board and take this and promote this. Let's have folks come out. We know that that's going to be, Jason always shares the Word of God with us and the songs are always so holistic. So that's on Sunday, August the 1st at 11 a.m. right here at Walnut Grove. Tell them they need to get a permission slip from their pastor if they need to skip church. And that'll be all right too. Just for that one Sunday. Looking forward to seeing those two men here with us. They're going to be coming in that Saturday before and getting things ready, so pray for them even now as they're heading our way. If you can help promote that and bring someone. Sometimes people will come to a singing and they won't come to a preaching, but could possibly meet Jesus just through the ministry of the Runnels here that Sunday morning. Turn with me in your Bible into the Gospel of John this morning, chapter 9. We're going through kind of thematically, not verse by verse, but we are going chapter by chapter in the Gospel of John, chapter 9. One of the stories that the children learned about. There were 5 different stories that teachers or workers in Bible school could choose from because still they're founding Vacation Bible School on 5 days or nights. Many churches still do that. We started several years ago just doing a one-day school. God's really using that, but we still have to. When I went home last night, I ate just a little bit of supper. I was almost too tired to chew. Why in the world I chose corn on the cob as supper? That's so much work. Unless you eat corn like Terry. Have you ever seen my wife eat corn on the cob? Look like a snaggletooth person. You have no. It's supposed to be just a clean cob. But Carice was leading a group of these girls, most of the girls that were here this morning that you saw, and she could only pick 2 of the lessons, and one of the lessons that she picked or chose was about the story that's in John's Gospel, chapter 9, that we'll look at today. It's one of my favorite. I've been preaching this sermon for a long, long time, and it's always had the same title, Here's Mud in Your Eye. You know what that phrase is, here's mud in your eye? Yeah, y'all act like y'all have never had a drink of alcohol, but it's a toast. It's a toast. You know, they say, the Jews do not recognize Jesus as the Messiah, and Baptists do not recognize each other in the liquor store. Here's mud in your eye. It's a toast. And really what it is saying is, here's to your health. I hope this is good for you. It'll help you. It might make you go blind, but anyway, it's the intent, I think. And so, I've been hearing it all of my life. It's more often or commonly used in Great Britain and throughout the British kingdom or empire. Here's mud in your eye. And kick back a drink. That phrase is from this story. Do you know that a lot of the tunes to our Southern Gospel songs are taken from old bar songs? A number of years ago, Brother Larry Remington, he shared a devotional thought for us when I was pastor over in Limestone County. To begin his devotional, there was a very popular television show at that time. It was called Cheers. Every episode of Cheers took place in a bar in Boston. The theme song for Cheers was like this. I'm not going to sing that one to you too. I've already sang my best. I've used up everything I got. He says, I want to go where everybody knows my name. I want to know where the people go where they don't look down on me, where they love me, they accept me as I am. He says, oh, that's where I want to go. That's where I want to be. You know that when people go to a bar, most of the time, I know there's a lot of reasons for going anywhere, but I believe, it's my belief that people don't go to the bar for the alcohol, because you can get alcohol almost anywhere. I think they go for the family. I think they go, maybe not their family, but the friends, that family, the bar family. Toby Keith's got a song called I Love This Bar. That morning at the pastor's conference, Larry Remington shared with us, the title of his devotion was, I wish my church was more like a bar. Wish my church was more like a bar. Because I don't believe that people are just going there to become intoxicated. I believe they're going there because, generally speaking, now you can get shot at a bar or stabbed, but generally speaking, the people are very open-minded there, and they don't criticize you or condemn you. They're not down on you so much. Make my church more like a bar. And he talked to us about Cheers a little bit. We all are familiar with the show, and he told us a little bit about the song. And I thought, well, you know, so often people are afraid to come into the church because they're afraid of what me and you might think of them or what we might say to them, or how we feel about them, or that we might judge them or criticize them. Here's mud in your eye. Let's look at this story because it's one of my favorite in the Gospel of John. Here, John's Gospel, chapter 9 and verse 1. It says, as he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Let's just stop there for just a minute and let's plant some seeds. When people see misfortune in your life or trouble, when they see catastrophe or disaster, when they see that something in your life has collapsed or fallen apart or something has gone terribly wrong, it is a part of human nature. I may be sounding critical or negative, but it is just a part of human nature for me and the people around you to say, I wonder what he did to deserve that. Wonder what she did to bring that upon themselves. They said, why was this man born blind? Was it his parents? The way we see God is very strange. Is your God like that? We say, that man and woman have sinned against me. I'm going to make their little boy be born blind. That'll teach him. Like, man, that's a mean God. Whew. Or was it him? You see, to some extent here, they believed in reincarnation. The disciples had some flaky beliefs. They believed that this man had perhaps sinned in a former life. That's the only thing that verse 1 can mean. Did this man sin or his parents? That he was born blind. Or maybe God knew that there was a sin he was going to sin. He could see into the future. So he made the disciples had twisted theology. It's not mentioned here in the verse, but Jesus did this right here. Man. No. So you'd have to kind of just read between the lines. We do not really live in the world that God created. Because of choices that mankind made, we can look and say that when Adam and Eve were created in the Garden of Eden, when God created everything, it was perfect. It was perfect. Everything was perfect. And then Adam and Eve began, because of their freedom of will and freedom of choice, began to make bad choices. When you and I look around the world today, we say, well, God made me this way, and God made that, and this is what God made. Well, what we're looking at in the world today is not the image of God. It's a wreck. Years ago, I was preaching at the Vandale Baptist Church, and I said, you know, I've got a wrecked car in my backyard right now. I think if you're going to live in Alabama, you have to have automobile on blocks in your car, in your yard. I think it's a requirement. And I said, you know, I look at that car. And they say, you say, what is that? Is that a car? And he said, it doesn't look much like a car. I said, that's right. It's because it's a wreck. We were going to eat at one of the members' houses that Sunday afternoon. They had invited us over, and their kids were in the car with us. Me and Terry didn't have any kids. We were still happy. I like that question when Curly's shaving that block of eyes. He said, hey, are you married or happy? Well, we still didn't have kids. Our life was very simple, but we were longing for children. Little did we know. And we were coming along, and we rounded a corner, and we was headed toward the Futurals home that Sunday afternoon. Had a carload of their kids with us. And I happened to look over in the field, and I shouldn't have done this, but I guess I was fishing for something. I wanted to see if these little boys and girls in our car had been listening to the message, and there was a car out in the middle of the field, and it was a wreck. And I said, look at there, boys and girls, what is that? Little Bill Futrell said, that's a wreck. That's a wreck is what that is. And I said, well, thank you. You were listening to the sermon. I'm glad. It's a wreck. Yes, God made everything. And then all of us, not just Adam and Eve. Do you blame Adam and Eve? Well, I've messed up enough of my life. I don't have to blame anybody. If you go through life blaming everybody, somebody else for what's in your life, you're never going to get anywhere. If you think that there's someone out there that's responsible for all of your life's trouble, you just need more light. I know I did, and I still do. People are born blind. It's a part of this fallen world. It's the way we've been changed. It's the way we've been affected. It's the way we have damaged the economy and the ecology and the environment. It's the way we've damaged our DNA and our genetic code. It's the way we've exposed ourselves to everything kind of toxin and poison that has changed who we are and how we produce and what becomes of us. That none of it was a part of the original plan of God. Neither this man nor his parents sinned. Should be another word after that. Dummy? I can preach in a different way when Avery's not here because she has like a swear word jar and I can't make it past muster. No! Dummy? Kind of sounds like Fred Sanford preaching. Said Jesus, this happens so that the works of God might be displayed in him. Now let me tell you that this is also hard to accept. And this is tough. Jesus said, let me tell you why this man was born blind. For this right now. For what I'm about to do. That's the reason he was born blind. You may think that that's heartless or cruel. You may think that that is hard. You may not agree with that. He says God had a plan. He wanted to show everybody who the light of the world is. And you know, this man he was in the temple. They brought him there every day so that he could beg. I've been to lots of places around the world, and in a lot of cultures, they still take their lame and crippled and halt and blind people to public places so that they can beg for money or food or whatever. He couldn't get there, so someone took him there. Or maybe he learned how to feel his way there. He's a grown man now. But listen, Jesus had been coming to Jerusalem his whole life, and he's around 30 years old. This is not the first time Jesus has ever seen this blind man. He's seen this blind man his entire life. But today is the day when Jesus is going to work a miracle. You see, Jesus didn't come to the world to rid the world of sickness and blindness. He came to show us the way to heaven. He didn't come. He came to forgive all sin so that it wouldn't be a hindrance to us. But we need to understand that Jesus didn't heal all the blind people in the world. Let's look right here. This happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. It's more important that I believe that Jesus is the light of the world than I can see or hear or walk or stand or fly. I have lots of health problems. But I know that Jesus is the light of the world. So those health problems, they're going to be gone one day. Now there are Christians who believe that if I don't get some kind of miraculous healing, that something's wrong with my faith. I don't believe that. I believe we're all going to have infirmities, and we're all going to get sick one day, or perhaps we're all going to wake up dead. We're going to die. All of us. God didn't intend that either. God said if you eat this forbidden fruit, you'll begin to experience death in all of its forms. I'm the light of the world. Jesus came down here. He said, I didn't come down here to solve everybody's problems or answer everybody's questions. You need to know that in all of that darkness, I'm the light. I'm the light. Let's go on to the next slide there, Carter. After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. I don't think Jesus probably said, here's mud in your eye, but that's what he did. I thought about having everybody close their eyes at this point in the sermon, but that's really dangerous during the sermon. If I close my eyes right now, Davita's already asleep. I can tell. She's just kind of propped up acting like she's awake and listening, but she's not. She was here with us yesterday too. All those little kids. But I want you to hear a sound that a blind man heard. I want to say with almost complete certainty that you've never heard this in a sermon before. Chandler's grinning. She knows what I'm about to do. It's nasty, ain't it? Shouldn't do it, especially in public. You ever heard that in a sermon before? Johnny, you ever heard anybody do it in a sermon? It's a first. It's a first. There's a lady that used to, when I was pastoring in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago, every Sunday she'd call me, not every Sunday, it just seemed like every Sunday, she'd call me and say, that was the worst sermon I've ever heard in my life. And I talked about going out to my yard one time and getting that. We had our sewer was overflowing. I went and got some sewage, and I brought it into the pulpit. She kept me on the phone for about an hour that day. Sewage in the pulpit. If she was here today, spitting in the pulpit would certainly light her up. That man was blind. And Jesus went, well, I'm not going to do it again.
Please not.
He knew exactly, absolutely, what Jesus was doing. You know why? You know why? Because he'd been spit on before. Why do you think people spit on that blind man? I've seen people kick people who were down and spit on people my whole life. A lot of times they feel like they're doing the work of God. I'm just doing the work of God to spit on people and to hit people and to kick people when they're down, when they're blind, when they're lame or mute, when they're hurting. Because obviously this person or his parents has sinned, and that's why he's blind. That's why they're having trouble. That's why their life is a wreck. That's why they're plagued by misfortune and loss and brokenness. This man knew what Jesus was doing. I don't know if you have a Jesus who spits or not. A number of years ago, Max Lucado mentioned about Jesus having a pimple. Just talking about Jesus was an ordinary, kind of a normal human being. And they like to burn his house now. Jesus didn't have any pimples. What's wrong with you? Probably think he didn't spit either, but he did. And it says he made some mud. He made some mud with the spit. Now listen, there were times when Jesus just said, done. Or he didn't say anything to the water that became wine. He didn't, it says he just said a prayer of thanks over the bread and fish. Why in the world would Jesus do this? Everything has a purpose and everything has a reason. He spit on the ground. And I believe if you will use your imagination, when Jesus spit on the ground, I believe you can see that blind man just kind of flinching a little bit, just kind of. Because that had happened before. He'd been stricken and smitten and hit, kicked, spat upon. Because that's generally what we do to people who are already down as far as they can go. I was telling the Sunday school class this morning, there's been a time in my life when I was so angry with God that I left the ministry completely. I boxed up everything that had to do with being a preacher or a pastor. I put it in boxes and I taped it up and I labeled it and I put it away. I was quit. I was done. I was so angry at God that I hated him. I hated him. I'd been preaching for years. I've been serving him for years. I've been pastor of a number of churches. And yet I got to a place where you know what I felt like had happened to me? I felt like God had spit on me. Now, I don't want to scare you or shake you up. It really doesn't matter to me where your opinion of me is. But I'm telling you the truth. My son asked me one day, he said, Daddy, is that true or are you just preaching? I said, son, that is not only true, but that is good preaching too. That's the truth. I hated God. I hated him so much. Remember, you ever read over there in the book of Jeremiah? Jeremiah says, well, I'm done. I'm never going to speak another word in his name because he lied to me. He deceived me. He pulled the rug out from underneath me. Jeremiah said, I'm done. I'm done. Nobody was believing any of the messages that Jeremiah was preaching. They weren't following any of the advice he was giving. And finally, the king had him thrown in prison because his preaching was so negative. Just threw Jeremiah in prison. Jeremiah said, all right, I'm done. He said, I'm not going to speak another word in his name. That became my favorite verse. I said, see right there? I'm going to put my name right here. I'm going to write my name in right there. I'm done. You think this man thought he was being blessed when Jesus spit in his eye? Oh, thank you. Thank you for that spit mud in my eye. I appreciate it. I don't think so. You know what I found out? When I thought Jesus had spit on me, or mistreated me, or overlooked me, or neglected me, you know what he was really doing? He was healing me. He was helping me to see something. He was changing me. It was a blessing. It was a blessing. He's doing something good for this man. Look at the rest of the story. Paul already says, go, he told him, wash in the pool of Siloam. This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home. See, came home seeing. Look at this last slide. Let me show you something. This is a drawing of a scale of Jerusalem in the time of Jesus. This is the temple complex. You see the walls of Jerusalem around there? This is the temple complex. And that's where this took place, in the temple. In the courtyard of the temple. You had to leave the temple and come down through this walkway. Down here was the pool of Siloam. That's where Jesus sent him to wash his eyes. That's a long way. But he knew where the pool of Siloam was, even though he was a blind man. Sometimes he even went there to beg. It was a place, well, not a swimming pool, but it was a bathing, a washing, a cleansing pool, like a huge, gigantic baptismal pool. He could have just limped over out of the way and gone to a private place and taken his garments and his fingers. He could have clawed that old mud out of his eyes. If he had a handkerchief, he could have wiped it out. I have no idea in the world why that man walked all the way from the temple with mud in his eyes down to here to wash it out. I have no idea why he did it. I don't know why he should have believed Jesus, or he should have done. He didn't know Jesus or who he was. Maybe he'd heard a rumor, or maybe he'd heard a thought, but I don't know if he'd ever met Jesus before, but he does exactly what Jesus tells him to do. And he could see. He splashed that cold water in his face, and he could see. And he says, first thing he did is he went home. I was talking with the kids yesterday. Let me ask you this question. How in the world did he get home? How did he find home? He'd never seen any of these people. He didn't even know what his mama looked like. He didn't know what his daddy looked like. Brian mentioned yesterday that maybe he followed the smells. That's a good idea too. The sounds and the smells. You know, I believe that there were times when that blind man who could see had to close his eyes and feel his way around. Say, okay, I know where I'm at now. He opened his eyes again. I believe it took him a while to get home. He had no idea who that woman was who met him at the door until she spoke. And she was shocked to see that her son could see. I don't know why there are bad things that happen in your life. Can't explain them all. A lot of people are going to just kind of feel like you're cursed. You're touched of God. God's against you and God's your enemy. He's bringing this down upon you. Some people believe that. Jesus might possibly say, no, I'm doing something. I'm doing something. And I don't know what your experience with the Lord Jesus has been like. There may have even been times when you feel like with all of your prayers and prayings and all of your cries for help, all you've ever felt like the Lord has ever done is just spit in your eye. I want to tell you that I misunderstood. I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I didn't get it. I didn't understand. But in many cases I do now. And when those things happen in my life, and sometimes things unhappy or uncharitable or terrible things happen in my life, I don't discount them anymore. I want to say, God, I don't know what this is. I'm going to let you know right now. I still don't like it. But I believe you're doing something. And whatever you want me to do, wherever you want me to go, what actions you want me to take, in order to indicate to you that I'm doing my best to do what you want me to do. I wonder if a lot of people followed it. Might have been a parade behind me. Where's he going? Pool of Siloam. Pool of Siloam. Who knew? What's he going there for? He's going to wash his face. All right. Hey, that's a blind man, isn't it? If you read the rest of this story, later on in the story, the whole chapter 9 is dedicated to this man. Somebody says, isn't that the blind guy? And someone really said this in the Bible. No, he just looks like it. No, he just looks like it. And that blind man stood up and says, no, I am he. I am he. The Pharisees and religious leaders went and got him, and he said, who did this to you? Who gave you your sight? And he said, I don't know. I didn't see him. Well,
slap you, I'll take a rope to you. I didn't see him. I'm telling you, I didn't. I have no idea. They said, bring in his parents. And they brought in his parents. Is this your son? Yes, it is. Thought he was blind. He is. He was. Has he just been kidding all along? They said, no, I guarantee you, he was born blind. He's not putting on at all. Later on, this man was kind of over by himself, looking at stuff. And Jesus slipped up to him. Jesus said, how you doing? He said, I'm okay. It was a good day. The blind man said, I know that a man gave me my sight today, but I don't know who he is. Jesus took a little step over to get in front of him good. He said, look at me. Look right here. He said, I'm the one. I'm the one. Something else he said, you know, I don't know who he is, but if I figure out who he is, he must be the Messiah. And I'm going to worship him. I'm going to devote my life to him. I'm going to give my life to him. And Jesus said, that's me. That's me. That man just fell at Jesus' feet and worshiped him. He could not only see, but he could see. He could see. For the rest of his life, anytime anybody asked him, how'd that happen? He said, let me tell you about Jesus. Let me tell you about Jesus. Every time someone had spit on him was now gone and forgotten. All the tragedy, all the darkness of his life was gone. Everything, all the skint knees and calluses on his hands from feeling the walls. Every bad thing about being blind had just dissipated into nothingness because now he could see. And you know, not only that, with his brand new sight, he saw Jesus. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, thank you for sending Jesus. And thank you for giving me the sight, the eyes to see him. I know you've forgiven me for the times when I've been so angry and filled with hate. I know that you've opened my eyes and let me see what you're doing in my life. But Lord, sometimes you haven't told me all the answers or given me all the solutions. But you've allowed me to see what I need to see. And it all comes from just doing whatever you've told me to do to the best of the ability you've given me. If there's someone here this morning who is resentful or angry or bitter, or there's some darkness or tragedy that's in their life, some calamity, some terrible, terrible thing that has consumed their life, I would pray that they would see that that too has been a part of their life. But you want to lead us out of the dark. You want us to see. And we can spend the rest of our lives saying, I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. If there's anybody here this morning, Lord, who needs your amazing grace, I pray that they would find it as it is readily available. You speak to us today more powerfully than any human voice could ever do. And we ask it in